Back over in the seedy part of town where they had previously come searching for Melly, Camilla and Cameron Pell were seated in the back of a town car with Derek wedged in between them. Cameron had insisted that they drive there this time, especially now that they had found the exact building Melly lives in. Camilla agreed. It was nice to have a layer of protection between them and this part of the city. The twins were hopeful that having Derek there this time around would warm Melly up to the idea of helping them by giving the twins some of her DNA. They had to confirm once and for all if Melly was their missing cousin, Jacqueline Pell. Camilla tried to prepare Derek for the interaction. Make sure you're super sincere and make it obvious that you're on her side. Derek was nervous. He wasn't sure how Melly would react to seeing him, but if doing this meant that he would protect Millie from harm, he had to try. Even if Millie hated him forever, Derek wanted to be a better brother. He tried to warn the twins that this might not work. However, I want you both to consider that she probably doesn't want to see me. Derek swallowed. The last time he had seen Millie was after he told her he didn't think they should be in each other's lives anymore. Cameron and Camilla exchanged a look, then Camilla replied, "We'll take our chances." Just then, the driver pulled up to Millie's building, and the three of them slipped out of the car and walked up to the front of the building. Derek craned his neck up, looking at the familiar building and muttering to himself, "Here we go." He looked at the Pell twins and noticed that they were signing to each other. He wished he understood sign language so that he could know if they were talking about him, even though he already had a hunch they were. Cameron signed to Camilla that he really hoped this worked. They didn't know what kind of relationship Derek had with Melly, and they didn't want to completely scare Melly off. Camilla assured him that this plan would work. She knew the mind of a girl and felt pretty certain that Derek would be able to convince Melly to help them. Cameron nodded, and they entered the building. Camilla knocked confidently on Melly's door. Melly opened the door with the chain still locked. She never knew what to expect in this building, so she had her gun loaded and pointed through the sliver of space between the door and frame. When she realized the Pell twins were back, her stomach churned. "I told you, I'm not giving you guys." Melly's voice faltered when Camilla suddenly stepped aside to reveal Derek standing behind her. "My DNA." Melly was stunned to see Derek face to face. "Hi, Melly," Derek said softly, offering a weak smile that made him look like a little boy. Melanie suddenly slammed the door in their faces. "Wow, she really does hate you," Camilla commented. But just as they were about to turn around and give up, Melly undid the chain and opened the door. Melly stepped aside, inviting Derek, Cameron, and Camilla into her apartment. Derek raised his eyebrows in surprise, while a soft smile crept across Camilla's face. She knew she was right about this plan. "So what do you want? Why are you here with them?" Melly didn't have time to beat around the bush. She clearly had a soft spot for Derek, but she still had her limits. Derek glanced at the twins, who both nodded in unison back at him. "I need you to give them your DNA. For Millie." He let out a deep breath and watched Melly's face turn crimson. Millie couldn't hold back her anger. "I can't believe you just said that. Why in the world would you ask me to do something for another girl, Derek?" Derek dropped his face into his hands, exasperated. He looked back up at Melly, who was staring at him, waiting for an answer. He had to tell her what he'd been hiding for so long. "Okay, here's the thing. Millie isn't just some girl. She's my sister. She was adopted into my family when we were just kids." Millie felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. She could hear the sound of her own breath as she tried to process what Derek had just said. "What?" Derek continued. "And I've been the world's shittiest brother. I haven't treated her like family, but this is my chance to do something nice for her. I need to make up for at least a portion of what I've done." Melly's mouth fell open in shock. She quickly shut it and swallowed hard. Knowing that Millie was Derek's sister actually made things so much clearer. And seeing true remorse in Derek's eyes, seeing that he really did care about his sister, tugged at her heartstrings. But she still wasn't completely sure about giving up her DNA. Melly turned to the Pell twins. "What's in it for me?" She crossed her arms over her chest, waiting for them to give her a reason to say no. Well, there's your trust fund, for one. Camilla said it casually, and Mellie's eyes widened. You know, if you are actually a Pell. Camilla smiled. Mellie was stunned. She hadn't thought of what it might mean to have a claim to such a powerful and wealthy bloodline. If she was a Pell, it could change her life. I'd actually be able to go to college if I had access to a trust fund, Mellie said without thinking. Camilla and Cameron looked at each other and laughed. You could go to college, get your master's, go for a PhD, take a sabbatical, and get your yoga teacher training certificate if you wanted. You could get any degree under the sun with the amount of money in that trust fund, Camilla teased. Mellie's heart leapt forwards and backwards at the thought of it all. She decided she had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Fine, I'll do it. Beatrix was back in the car, making her way to New Jersey to visit Carolina Crawford again. She was still reeling over Brett's plan that had Melanie entangled with Mark DeLillo, and had to form a game plan. On her drive, Beatrix tried to call the mysterious man to see if, for once, he might be able to help her. The phone rang and rang, landing right back in his voicemail yet again. He was avoiding her. But Beatrix was never a quitter. She hung up and immediately dialed again. Beatrix? The mysterious man's voice boomed through the Bluetooth speaker of Beatrix's car and slapped her steering wheel in celebration. Beatrix could tell he sounded annoyed, but she didn't care. Listen, this is important. I need Mark DeLillo to die. He's messing with Melanie and he's banned me from his property. Beatrix tried not to sound too desperate, chewing the inside of her lip while she waited for Mysterious Man's response. The Mysterious Man sighed, sounding especially exasperated. This is exactly why I didn't want Melanie to come to New York in the first place. She always clouds your judgment. Beatrix could tell he wasn't happy with her, but she didn't care. I know, but I need your help. Beatrix started, but the Mysterious Man quickly cut her off. I'm done here. You're on your own. I've realized that Olivia does not seem to have the object I've been looking for, and I'm transferring my focus to searching in Europe. The Mysterious Man stated succinctly. Beatrix couldn't believe what she was hearing. She felt like the chess pieces were slipping from her hands. Please. Beatrix tried to object again, but the Mysterious Man continued to pile on. I have someone better than you on the case in Europe. I don't need you right now. I'll call you if that changes. And just like that, he hung up. Beatrix looked straight ahead in silence as the road rushed past her windows. Then all of a sudden, she let out a blood-curdling scream of anger. It took so much air out of her lungs that she was out of breath when she finally finished. She banged her fist against the steering wheel, cursing out loud. She was so delirious with rage, she nearly missed her turn into Carolina Crawford's villa driveway. Beatrix parked and rushed into the temporary villa. Carolina barely looked up from a book in her lap to acknowledge Beatrix's entrance. Beatrix didn't waste any time. I need your help getting revenge on Mark DeLillo. Beatrix crossed her arms, feeling impatient and antsy. Carolina didn't respond. She just laughed and flipped to the next page in her book. I don't need to do shit for you. Beatrix felt the heat in her face spread to her ears. She was really annoyed now. Do I need to remind you that you need my help too? Getting rid of Mariana Crawford? Carolina sneered at Beatrix. Oh no, honey, not anymore. I have all the information that I need now. I don't need you at all. Beatrix didn't think she could feel any angrier than she did at that moment. Is that so? She tried to keep her cool. She didn't want to show any weakness in front of a Crawford. If Carolina was going to abandon ship, Beatrix would be fine too. Carolina stood up and took a step toward Beatrix, smirking. Actually, I broke into the Marshall School official emails all on my own and found out that Olivia Johnson won't be at the upcoming graduation. So that's when I'm making my move. Carolina winked, old school style. Carolina turned and returned to her seat, picking up her book. You can go now. She waved a hand at Beatrix, who stood there completely dumbfounded, before turning on her heel and stomping her way out to her car. Beatrix got behind the wheel and began to drive, accelerating faster and faster, until suddenly it hit her. She had nowhere to go. Olivia was eventually released from the hospital after some time of rest and was continuing to recover in the comfort of her own home. Morgana and Brent stayed at Olivia's side constantly to ensure that she continued to heal and make good progress. Olivia appreciated the company as well. Truly resting was a challenge after being so on the go for the last year. She was not used to feeling bored, but she knew it was important for her recovery, and she would need to recover as quickly as possible if she wanted a chance to find Chris in Europe at the end of the summer. Olivia had learned the hard way that ignoring her body was not how she was going to get what she wanted. In any case, she was glad to be home. Morgana continued to be an excellent nurse and helped the time go by. Victoria was not really sure what to make of Atticus, who stopped by the apartment frequently ever since Olivia had returned from the hospital. She knew they were Morgana's brothers, and she loved Morgana, but she sensed that these two were very odd. Still, she found it nice that they were so concerned with Olivia's health. On the other hand, Victoria was incredibly charmed by Sven, who always came along with the odd brothers. He was particularly good at calming Victoria's nerves when it came to her questions about Morgana's siblings. The more Olivia improved, the less worried she felt about her daughter. She knew it was good for Olivia to finally get some much-needed rest and special care after the endless months of constant work and stress. It was also nice to have so many people around, especially with Michael working extra hours at the office to make up for the fact that Olivia was not there. Feeling much more energized since leaving the hospital, Olivia called for a video conference with Jared, Jeff, and Violet. It was time to make a plan for the Rose Hotel closing party, which was already fast approaching at the end of the week. Violet and Jeff had been taking turns keeping Jared safe at the park company building all this time. But this would be their big chance to finally handle Jake Nevin once and for all. "I can be at the Rose Hotel party too, whatever you need. I'm sure I could be of some help," Jared said. He felt slightly guilty that everyone had to take on such a risky operation just to protect him, and he was very grateful for their hospitality over the last few weeks. After the confrontation with his brother, he was eager to do something active and be of use. He was still furious and distraught over what his brother had done. If there was any justice to be had, he wanted to participate. "I understand where you're coming from, Jared, really I do. But it would just be too dangerous for you to be at the party. We need to keep you out of sight until we are absolutely sure that Jake isn't a threat to you anymore," Olivia explained gently. "We can't afford for there to be any accidents. Remember, you are the only person who was an eyewitness when Jake killed your grandfather. That has definitely put a big target on your back. We need you to be around to tell the truth when the time comes. I know you want to help, but staying safe and out of sight is what will help the most for the time being." Olivia turned her attention to Brent. "Is there anything I should keep in mind on the health front?" Brent nodded. "You are almost strong enough to take this on. I think by Friday you will be good to go, but again, it's so important that you conserve as much of your energy as possible before this event and after. It's your only hope of being well enough to go to Europe at the end of the summer, if that's also still a priority for you. So keep that in mind and think carefully about what you use your energy on." Brent raised his eyebrows, trying to suggest to Olivia that he meant specifically not to use her powers. "I understand. Thank you for overseeing my care so thoroughly. I couldn't do any of this without your help. Without all of your help." Olivia smiled at her helpful team and friends on her computer screen. "All right, let's make a plan," Olivia said with a smile. It felt good to be back in the driver's seat, and she had been looking forward to handling Jake for a very long time. Just beyond the city limits, Cameron and Camilla Pell sat with Millie and Derek in their eerie but beautiful Victorian home. A large grandfather clock ominously chimed the hour, making Melly jump. Melly could not shake the feeling that, if she didn't know better, she would have believed that this house was inhabited by vampires. She also was not sure if she had ever been in such a nice home with so many pieces of expensive furniture and decor. With his steady hands, Cameron skillfully took a sample of Melly's blood that they could use for the DNA test. He handed the small vial off to Camilla so that she could run the test with their home equipment. "Wow, I barely even felt that," Melly said in surprise. "Where did you learn how to do that? You should be a nurse or something." Cameron smiled slightly at the compliment. He and his sister had a long list of unusual skills thanks to their upbringing in an infamous crime family. But it took a comment like that from someone their age to remind Cameron of just how unusual it was. He quickly cleaned up and put the tools away. "All right, the test is up and running," Camilla said when she walked back into the room and sat on the large dark velvet couch. "Okay, so now we just wait," Melly replied awkwardly. They all waited in tense silence, unsure of what else to talk about, while Melly awaited news that could potentially change her entire life in an instant. "I guess if I do turn out to be a pal, I'll need to learn the dress code, huh? I don't know if I really look the part yet." Melly lightheartedly nodded at the expensive but possibly haunted room around them. Cameron signed something to Camilla, which made her cackle heartily in response. "What did he say?" Melly asked nervously. She braced herself for some comment affirming that she would never fit in with these people, which is how Melly was used to feeling for her entire life. "He said the way you handle a gun makes you already very much seem the part of a pal." Camilla grinned. Melly felt herself relax as she chuckled along with Camilla and Cameron. It was the most welcome she had felt by anyone in a very long time, possibly ever. Melly felt herself relax, feeling suddenly at ease in this less than average situation. The whole thing felt too ridiculous to hope for, but a small part of her dreaded the test results because she did not want to let go of this tiny taste of family. She knew as soon as they discovered she was not related to them, which given Melly's luck was probably what was about to be revealed. That would be the end of all their hospitality. After some time, Camilla looked up at the intimidating grandfather clock. "The test should be done. I'll go check." She went away for a moment and returned with the results. When she looked at them, she drew in a sharp breath. "What did it say?" Melly asked anxiously. Camilla looked up at them all with a cheeky smile. "Well, I guess I need to say, welcome to the family, Melly." Melly heard Camilla's words and her head immediately started to spin. She thought she must be dreaming. The twins, the strange house, all of it was too surreal. She was no longer just Melly, the lonely orphan. She was part of a family, and not just any family. For the first time in her whole life, Melly would not have to worry about money or where her next meal was coming from. But most importantly, she would have other people looking out for her. Melly was going to have a family. "I'm calling grandfather," Camilla announced and pulled out her phone. She spoke excitedly as soon as he answered. "Grandfather, are you sitting down? Good. We found Jacqueline. We really found her. Her name is Melly, but it's definitely her. The DNA test confirmed it." "May I speak to her?" their grandfather asked softly over speakerphone. It was clear he was in complete shock. Camilla handed Melly the phone and she took it tentatively. "Hello?" Melly said. "It's me, Melly. I guess I'm also your granddaughter. It's nice to meet you." The sound of Melly's voice on the phone immediately brought tears to their grandfather. "I am so glad we have finally found you," he said at last as he tried to speak. "I'm so sorry it took us this long." "That's okay," Melly answered, unsure what one should say in this type of situation. Melly, it's so nice to hear your voice." You could practically hear the smile in their grandfather's voice. "But if you don't mind passing the phone back to your cousin, I must speak to Camilla and Cameron again for a moment." Melly handed the phone back to Camilla. Melly felt an unfamiliar warmth in her heart. She realized it was the feeling of being wanted, and it was wonderful. All her life, she had thought no one cared about her, but her family had been trying to find her this whole time. You must bring Millie to Europe this summer so that she can be introduced to the rest of the family. Their grandfather kindly ordered Camilla and Cameron. Millie felt tears coming to her own eyes as she started to accept that she might actually belong. She looked up at Derek and smiled at him as she mouthed thank you. He had helped her give her what she had always thought was impossible. Suddenly, it felt as though they had met for a reason, as if Derek was always supposed to come into her life when he did. I must also caution you both, their grandfather continued to Camilla and Cameron as his voice suddenly darkened. Whatever you do, you must not tell any of this to your Uncle Pete. It was officially the Friday everybody had been waiting for. First up was the Marshall School senior graduation day, followed by the Rose Hotel closing party later that very same evening. It was a day of big celebrations and even bigger plans. The stakes were high this Friday, and everyone could feel it. Olivia was at home feeling antsy about missing her senior graduation ceremony. She was sad to not be there, but she knew that it was way more important for her to be at the Rose Hotel closing party. She needed to confront Jake and support Jared against him. It also wouldn't hurt to make Marta Lillo uncomfortable with her presence. That was just an added bonus. While Olivia was going in loops in her head about the night to come, Morgana was doing her makeup and getting ready to go watch the graduation ceremony. Even though she was excited to support Millie, Lena, and the rest of their friends, she felt bad that Olivia would be left out. Morgana stopped herself halfway through a stroke of eyeliner and turned to Olivia. Just say the word, and I'll stay home with you. Olivia looked up from the spot on the carpet she was focused on for the last 10 minutes and smiled at Morgana. No way, you have to go. It would be way too sad if you didn't. Morgana was grateful for Olivia's generosity. Even during some of Olivia's dark times. Only if you mean it. Olivia climbed off her bed and over to Morgana at her vanity chair. She took the eyeliner pen from her hand and finished off the half-done line on her right lid. I really mean it, and I want a full recap the second it's over. Olivia stepped back, proud of her work. Plus, you look great. At the Marshall School, all the seniors were buzzing with excitement. Groups of friends were littered all across campus, giddy about their last day as high school students. Millie and Lena stood huddled behind the auditorium stage wearing their caps and gowns. Francis and Sam Feinstein joined them, and they all excitedly shared memories from their time at Marshall together. Remember Senior Ditch Day? Lena giggled and wiggled her eyebrows. She looked at everyone, and they all burst out laughing. Millie was talking through her laughter. I think that was the only day Olivia actually made it to her AP history class, and no one was even there. The group cracked up and continued to make jokes about their last year of high school, before Francis shifted gears. He began to turn sentimental as he listened to Lena talk. He thought about what it would be like not to get the chance to see her every day like he had for the past year. He smiled weakly and announced, I'm going to be sad without you, Lena. I know NYU will love you, but I'll still love you more. Lena gave him a hug and a peck on the cheek. You'll have way too much fun traveling for a whole year to be sad about me. And you get to take Sam with you. Francis nodded in agreement and pat Sam Feinstein on the back in excitement. Dude, I'm so glad you're coming. Sam spun in place, excited and cheery. I'm most excited about Tokyo. I'm going to meet with some of the best game designers in the world. I'll have so many great ideas to bring back to Confluence. Lena then reminded Francis. And don't forget, you promised to send me a postcard from every single place you visit. She turned to Sam. Don't let him forget. Francis pulled Lena into another tight hug and affirmed, You got it. It'll be so hard to be away from you, Lena. But distance makes the heart grow fonder. I'm sure I'll come back more in love with you than ever. Lena smiled big at that, nuzzling her face into the crook of Francis's neck. Just then, Millie received a text. She pulled her phone out from her jeans pocket and saw the name Derek glowing at the bottom of her screen. The text preview read, "Dad made me come to graduation." Millie sighed and reluctantly unlocked her phone to read the rest. The text continued, "I can make up an excuse and leave if you want me to." Millie stared at her phone. She knew it would break their dad's heart if Derek missed this ceremony today. She responded, "It's fine, you can stay. But know that it's only for Dad, not for me." Millie stuffed her phone back in her pocket and tried to shake off her annoyance so she could rejoin the conversation with her friends. Camilla and Cameron approached the group at that very moment, all dressed up in their caps and gowns and seeming jollier than anybody had ever seen them. Cameron nearly skipped over and enveloped Millie in a big hug, trying to casually plant a kiss on her mouth. Millie could barely react in time, but she moved her face quickly to the side so that he caught her cheek instead. She turned red and felt her heart rate pick up, blurting, "I've got to go to the ladies' room to freshen up. Sorry." Millie couldn't bear to admit that she had overheard Cameron and Camilla's conversation about how she might be a pal. But she also couldn't bear the thought that she might have been kissing her cousin this whole time. Millie quickly dragged Lena off with her and disappeared around the corner, headed for the bathroom. Millie felt terrible about rejecting Cameron like that, but she felt even worse about the thought of them possibly being cousins. She couldn't be around him until she knew for sure. Cameron watched her go, feeling hurt and confused. He glanced at Camilla for answers, but she had no idea what was wrong with Millie either. She just shrugged, figuring this was an emotional day for Millie. Later, in the auditorium, everyone was finally seated and Principal Yan had begun the ceremony. He opened with a short speech, thanking everybody for all the time they had put in at the Marshall School over the last 4 years, and for all the families for supporting their amazing kids. Derek stood at the back of the room, leaning against the wall and trying his best to remain inconspicuous. In stark contrast, Morgana sat proudly in the very front row. All her teeth were bared in a cartoonish smile, and she was bouncing with excitement to watch her friends graduate. A few of the students had given her some odd looks when she entered the auditorium. They knew she had been a transfer student in the senior class and found it odd that she was not graduating. But Morgana didn't care. Where she came from, a high school degree was completely useless. Principal Yan finished thanking the crowd, then invited Adam Reed on stage to give a speech. Morgana and Millie exchanged sheepish grins, both of them excited to see one of their favorite teachers up on stage. Adam Reed stepped up to the podium and smiled warmly at his students and shared a speech he had written by hand on a small piece of paper. "Hello, everyone. I'm so proud to see all of you dressed in your caps and gowns. It's been such an honor to teach you this year and to watch your growth both as students and as young adults." Adam Reed smiled out at the crowd. "English is an interesting topic to teach because it allows me to get a glimpse into your minds. And let me say, some of the brightest and most creative minds of this generation are sitting right here in this room." Adam Reed had to swallow to stop himself from tearing up. "The only thing I've ever wanted as a teacher is the opportunity to get to know my students and to lead them to the best versions of themselves. You all have given me everything I could hope for and more. As I watch you all celebrate today, I can tell that you all have beautiful lives ahead of you. Thank you for being my students, and congratulations on an incredible accomplishment." Adam Reed began to clap for the graduating class. The entire auditorium erupted in joyous applause. Adam Reed's speech was sweet and to the point, just like his teaching style. He was definitely the right person to give the first speech of the evening. He set the tone and everybody was feeling good. Now, without further ado, I'd love to invite to the stage our wonderful class valedictorian this year. She's been a star student and beloved member of this class. Adam Reed grinned with anticipation. Please welcome none other than Millie Brown. Morgana, Lena, Francis, Sam Feinstein, and the Pell twins all cheered extra loudly for Millie as she stood to take the stage. Millie felt so grateful for all the love and support of her friends, and she felt the nerves she had been experiencing moments ago melt away. She was actually excited to stand up and address the entire class. She had been preparing her speech for weeks now. While Olivia was still in the hospital and Millie had to come visit, Olivia had helped her with ideas and let her practice over and over until Millie felt confident enough in her abilities. This was her moment, and she was ready for it. During the uproarious applause, while all eyes were on Millie making her way up to the steps and toward center stage, Derek noticed something that no one else seemed to. Through the dense crowd, in between smiles, elbows, and clapping hands, he got a glimpse of someone. A girl. She had just slipped inside the auditorium through a side door, almost completely unnoticed. He squinted, trying to figure out who it was. But even when he saw a flash of her face, he didn't quite recognize her. He wondered who this girl might be, and why she was seemingly trying to sneak in. Millie stepped up to the podium and took a moment to look out at her graduating classmates seated before her. They had all been through so much together, many of them since they were kids. It was a fascinating mixture of people who Millie could not wait to never see again, as well as friends she knew she would have for the rest of her life. There was so much ahead for each of them, and this moment was likely the last they would all be gathered together like this. Millie remembered that one important friend was missing, Olivia. She wished Olivia could be there with them, but she knew there were important reasons behind her absence. Millie reminded herself that Olivia made her promise not to be sad or distracted that she wasn't there. So she took a deep breath in and exhaled, then put herself fully in the moment as she smiled at the crowd. Parents, family, and friends, esteemed faculty, and most importantly, my fellow graduates, Millie began. Her friends and some other students hooted and hollered in response. Millie smiled and continued, "Today marks one of the biggest milestones in our lives so far. As we stand at the threshold of our futures, it's important to reflect on the journey that brought us to this moment. Journeys filled with triumphs and challenges, laughter and tears, friendships formed, and lessons learned. When we first walked onto the campus of Marshall School's upper classes, we were excited and unsure of what lay ahead. But through our determination and perseverance, we have overcome every obstacle that stood between us and this very day." Any chatter that had lingered in the crowd fell completely silent. Everyone in attendance sat rapt with attention as Millie spoke. "We have grown not just academically, but personally," Millie continued. "We have discovered our passions, grown our skills, and created lifelong bonds. Today is not just about looking at what's behind us. It's also about looking to what's ahead. Looking to our futures with hope and excitement as we get ready to start this next chapter in our lives. The future might seem daunting, but we must remember that each of us is capable of achieving anything we set out to do." Millie could see Lena, Francis, Cameron, Camilla, Sam Feinstein, and all of their friends smile at each other as they resonated with her inspiring speech. Even Morgana was visibly beaming from the front row of the bleachers. Millie took another inhale, fighting back the urge to cry as she began to feel the sentimentality welling up inside her chest. "We have the power to shape our own destinies and leave a positive mark on the world around us, regardless of where we came from or what our last name may be," Millie said. Cameron smiled at Millie proudly. He was so relieved that she had not turned out to be his long-lost cousin. But he also knew that Millie did not need to be from a successful family to achieve her own greatness. At the end of the day, success is not measured by the money we make or the job titles we get. Millie continued with her speech. True success lies in the lives we touch, the hearts we inspire, and the difference we make in the lives of others. Without saying it directly, they all thought of their friend Olivia and how well she fit that description. Principal Yan looked like he might cry now himself. He felt so proud of Millie. Suddenly, both Cameron and Camilla felt a strange chill run down their spines. They looked at each other, then scanned the auditorium to see what might have caused the sudden odd gut feeling. They both knew it was no accident that they had both sensed something at the exact same time. Cameron subtly turned to look toward the exit by the bleachers when he unexpectedly locked eyes with Carolina Crawford as she stood at the back of the auditorium. She did not look as if she were there to celebrate. As soon as Carolina realized she had been spotted by Cameron, she quickly but silently darted in the direction of the stage. Millie carried on with her speech uninterrupted. So as we walk off into our futures, let's remember to be compassionate, empathetic, kind, and to use our gifts not just for ourselves, but for the greater good. Thank you to our teachers, mentors, our friends, and of course our families, the ones we're born with and the ones we choose. She paused briefly to smile at her friends as well as her father. Without their love and encouragement, we would not be where we are today. Cameron kept his eyes trained on Camilla as he saw her slowly pull a gun from the inside of her jacket while she continued toward the stage. Camilla and Cameron jumped to their feet and immediately tried to hurry out of their row. But since they were seated in the middle, they struggled to get past the other students who looked at them in confusion. Millie noticed the small commotion but did not understand what was happening. She soldiered on with her speech in spite of the disruption. Embrace the challenges that lie ahead. A famous author once said, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than fear. Believe in yourselves and follow your dreams." At that moment, Carolina found the opportunity to take her shot. She lifted the gun into full view and pointed it right at Millie. Time completely stopped for Cameron as he watched Carolina take aim at Millie, too far to do anything about it himself. "She's got a gun!" Camilla screamed as soon as she saw that they could not get to Carolina in time. The entire auditorium erupted in a panic as people shouted and ran from their seats, frantically trying to exit the auditorium. Millie stepped back from the podium and searched the chaotic crowd for Cameron. Instead of finding him, she spotted Derek as he barreled down one of the aisles in the opposite direction of everyone else who was trying to run for the exits. A gunshot rang out at an ear-piercing volume through the auditorium. People screamed and ducked down. The crowd appeared to freeze for a moment, unsure of whether what they thought was happening was really happening. Everyone jumped, followed by more screams as one of the side doors to the auditorium slammed shut. "Carolina got out! She's trying to run!" Camilla yelled to Cameron. Camilla bolted after Carolina out the side door without another glance back. Cameron ran toward the stage, desperate to find Millie. The chaos of the crowd running for the exits and hiding under their chairs resumed. People yelled the names of their loved ones. Cameron ran to the stage in a panic. He no longer saw Millie standing at the podium where she was moments ago. His heart felt like it was going to leap out of his chest. He jumped on the stage and rushed to the podium, terrified of what he might find. There he found Millie, crouched down and huddled behind the podium. She looked petrified, but didn't seem to be hurt. Cameron quickly knelt down and wrapped his arms tightly around her, shielding and comforting her at the same time. Cameron, you're okay. What's happening?" Millie cried. She could not stop shaking. A voice called out from the floor seats where the students had been. "He's been shot! Somebody help! He's been shot!" Cameron and Millie peered out from behind the podium to see a small crowd gathering around a spot in the aisle where Derek lay in a growing pool of blood. "Derek!" Principal Yan appeared and ran over to his son. Millie stood on stage by the podium, unable to move. She felt like she was in a trance as she looked at Derek's unconscious body. "Someone call 911! Anyone, do something! Help my son!" Principal Yan wailed as he held Derek's limp form. "Derek, open your eyes!" he screamed. Millie snapped back into her body and tried to run to them, but Cameron held her back. He quickly signed to her. "We have to get you out of here. It's not safe for you." "What are you talking about? What do you mean not safe for me? Derek is the one who's been shot," Millie protested. Morgana jumped onto the stage to join Millie and Cameron. "We have to get back to Olivia's place right now. Come on." Morgana and Cameron quickly hoisted Millie up and rushed her out of the auditorium through the back door behind the stage. Out in the hallway, Carolina moved quickly and quietly, trying not to draw any attention to herself. She snuck around a corner and darted down the nearest stairwell, remaining undetected by the panic throngs of people who were running for their lives. At last, Carolina made it to an exit door with no one around. She pulled out her phone to send a voice message to Madeline Defarge. "Bring the car around now." She pocketed the phone and smiled to herself, confident that she had made it unscathed. She casually walked toward the exit when she suddenly froze. She felt the familiar sensation of a cold blade against the skin on her neck. "Not so fast," Camilla said from behind her in a low voice as she smiled and pressed the blade against Carolina's throat. Carolina frowned, wondering for a moment if she was strong enough to overpower Camilla's grip. Carolina knew that Camilla was intense and well-trained in the art of intimidation, but she didn't realize that she was actually capable of killing someone. With a knife to her throat, Carolina realized that Camilla might actually have had it in her to murder without remorse. Carolina's eyes darted around the hallway, looking for some way out of this. If she couldn't escape Camilla's arms by sheer force, then hopefully there would at least be a witness around. Then she could manipulate them to help her get out of Camilla's grip. As if she could read Carolina's mind, Camilla's hold on Carolina tightened, making a swift escape feel less and less possible. "You have two options, Carolina Crawford. Either you tell me who has the antidote to Cameron's voice box problem, in which case I'll let you go. Granted that you stay out of my eyeline forever and ever. Or you can die right now. It's up to you. The choice is yours." Carolina took a deep breath, feeling the edge of the knife press harder into her skin as her lungs filled with air. Even though Carolina felt nervous, she didn't fully believe Camilla, so she decided to call her bluff. "Come on, Camilla, let's be real. You don't have the balls to kill me." Carolina sneered, hoping Camilla wouldn't sense the fear that bubbled just underneath Carolina's false confidence. Without a second thought, Camilla slid her knife against Carolina's throat and carefully sliced into her skin, drawing blood before pulling it back. "Oh yeah? Try me." Camilla grinned as Carolina gasped in shock. Carolina had no idea who she was dealing with, but with one swift movement, Camilla guaranteed that she would catch on. "Don't worry," Camilla smirked. "I didn't go deep enough. You're fine, for now." As blood dripped down her neck and onto her white blouse, Carolina's breathing started to quicken. "Oh, and if you do choose to make it out alive, you might want to get this nice top dry cleaned. I know a guy in Soho." Camilla nearly laughed, feeling drunk with power. Carolina could not believe what just happened. She was officially terrified, realizing that Camilla was a bigger threat than she had ever realized. "Stop!" Carolina choked the word out. Camilla taunted her. "I told you not to worry. I know exactly where the carotid arteries are, and I haven't quite hit one. Yet." Carolina tried again to wriggle out of Camilla's grip, but Camilla pressed the knife into her neck, right into the fresh wound she'd just created. Carolina screamed out in pain. Her head was clouded. She could barely think clearly. Fine, I'll tell you everything, just please stop." Carolina tried not to whimper. Camilla grinned wider than she had when she found out that Millie was actually her biological cousin, Jacqueline Pell. She was finally getting all the answers she'd ever wanted. Meanwhile, Cameron and Morgana were just arriving at Olivia's apartment with Millie, who was shaken to her core. She had had trouble breathing the entire car ride over, and Morgana had done everything she could think to try to calm her down. Just before they turned onto Olivia Street, Morgana pulled out her phone and tried calling the same number again. She hadn't gotten through yet, but wasn't ready to quit trying. Finally, an answer. "Hello?" Principal Yan finally answered the phone. He sounded both exhausted and frantic. Morgana figured he was emotionally depleted. "Principal Yan, it's Millie's friend Morgana." Morgana explained calmly into the phone. "I just wanted to let you know that Millie is with me, she's safe, and we're heading to Olivia Johnson's home. Thank you. Thank you so much. Principal Yan sighed into the phone. Morgana heard a lot of commotion in the background from his end. Tell Millie we're in an ambulance and on the way to the hospital. Principal Yan confirmed. Millie's ears perked up. She realized Morgana was on the phone with her father and tried to listen for her dad's voice to make out what he was saying about Derek. Is Derek okay? Morgana asked. The question hung heavy in the air. Morgana tried to angle the phone away from Millie. Sure, they're going to try and resuscitate him at the hospital. I have to go, I'm sorry. Tell Millie I'll call her as soon as I have news. Principal Yan then hung up, leaving Morgana, Millie, and Cameron all feeling uneasy as they neared Olivia's apartment building. The driver parked right out front. Cameron exited the car first and opened the door for Morgana and Millie. Morgana held Millie closely, trying to comfort her as they walked into the lobby. Cameron trailed behind them, making sure they were steady as they entered the elevator and pressed the button for Olivia's floor. When they got out, Cameron rushed ahead to knock on Olivia's door. Olivia opened the door, surprised to have visitors in the middle of the day and not sure who it could be. As soon as she saw Morgana and Millie's faces, her stomach dropped. Clearly, something bad had happened. Oh my God, are you okay? What happened? Where's Lena? Lena's okay. She and Francis are on their way too. Morgana tried not to falter. She was trying to stay strong for Millie, but even she felt a little shaken up by the whole experience. They quickly led Millie inside and helped her take a seat on the couch. Cameron sat next to her and laid a hand on her back. Olivia quickly ran to the kitchen to get a glass of water for Millie. She returned, handing Millie the glass of cold water. Millie took it and drank it silently, not making eye contact with anyone. Olivia desperately wanted to use her powers to read Millie's mind, both to know what was going on and to spare Millie the trauma of having to speak about whatever it was. But Olivia knew that during her recovery period, she wasn't allowed to use any powers. Olivia looked to Morgana for answers. So? Morgana sighed. So everything was going well. The ceremony started. Principal Yan spoke, and so did Adam Reed. And then it was Millie's turn to give the valedictorian speech. Olivia continually glanced at Millie, but Millie's gaze remained glued to her feet. Morgana continued. And that's when everything sort of went crazy. Somehow, Carolina snuck in. She had a gun. Morgana stopped, suddenly growing emotional. Olivia gasped and dropped to her knees in front of Millie on the couch, enveloping her in a hug. Millie crouched inward, putting her head between her knees. Millie, I am so sorry this happened, and I'm so glad you're okay. Olivia whispered, but Millie just shook her head. She must be in complete shock, Olivia thought. Morgana then laid her hand on Olivia to regain her attention. Olivia pulled away slowly from Millie to look at Morgana, nervous to hear the rest. That's not all, Morgana said. She didn't get Millie, obviously, but someone did get hurt. Derek jumped in front of the bullet. He was shot. Olivia looked to Millie and wished Millie would say something. Anything. She knew her relationship with Derek was fraught, to say the least. There had been many times Olivia had come close to using her powers to get rid of him herself. But she also knew how much Principal Yan must be hurting right now, and how much Millie loved her father. This must be a very confusing thing to process, Olivia thought, resting a hand gently on top of Millie's. Just then, Victoria entered the room. She took in the looks of horror and sadness on everyone's faces. Victoria immediately could tell that something was very wrong, even from across the room. What happened? Victoria asked, looking panicked. Her eyes flashed to Olivia, who seemed to be okay for the most part. Morgana spoke up immediately. There was a shooting at the graduation. Victoria gasped in surprise. She was selfishly grateful that Olivia had to sit the ceremony out, while also heartbroken for all of the students who had been there. Victoria immediately rushed over to the group to comfort them. Are you all right? Victoria looked all of them up and down as if checking for injuries. We're okay, but... Morgana swallowed, then nodded towards Millie. Victoria took in the far-off look in Millie's eyes and quickly got into mom mode. "Oh, sweetie, are you okay? I know you were up on that stage today. Gosh, that must have been terrifying." Millie didn't say a word, but was able to muster up a small smile to show that she appreciated Victoria's concern. "Is there anything I can do?" Victoria wanted to offer her support, but Millie just couldn't seem to find the energy to talk about how she felt at that moment. It was all too much for her. She wasn't sure she could even open her mouth without sobbing. Olivia tried to whisper to her mother so that Millie wouldn't hear. "It's okay, Mom. I think she needs space." Victoria was concerned but didn't want to overwhelm Millie. She decided to take a different approach. "Let me make you some tea." She rose to her feet, turned, and headed for the kitchen, now riddled with anxiety. As soon as Victoria was out of sight, Olivia glared at Morgana. "I don't want my mom to know this kind of stuff, you know that. She worries too much already. I don't want to burden her." Morgana crossed her arms in defense. "This is definitely going to be all over every single newspaper in town tomorrow. It's not going to be a secret. There were hundreds of people there, Olivia. We might as well tell her a little bit of what happened." Olivia sighed. Morgana was right. Plus, Olivia had just experienced the incredible relief of being honest with the people that she cared most about. Maybe she could lift the curtain with her mom just a little bit. "I know. You're right. Most importantly, is everybody else safe?" Olivia's heartbeat was nearly audible with anticipation. Morgana nodded. "No one else was hurt. We called Principal Yan earlier. He was in an ambulance with Derek. They're hoping to resuscitate him at the hospital." Olivia sighed. "I'm just so grateful that you all are okay," Olivia said, raising a hand to stroke Millie's hair comfortingly. Suddenly, Millie lifted her gaze. "Olivia?" Everyone turned to look at Millie in surprise. "Was the person who shot at me, was she a Crawford?" Cameron was taken aback by Millie's mention of the Crawfords. He thought they had all done a good job of keeping anything about the Crawfords and Millie's possible relation to them on a need-to-know basis, and Millie had been at the top of the list of people who were not supposed to know. If Millie knew to ask whether the person who shot at her was a Crawford, Cameron had to wonder what else Millie knew. Cameron's mind raced as he thought of a million questions he wanted to ask Millie, but Olivia quickly interrupted. She knew getting everyone on the same page was in order, but not within earshot of her parents. "I think we should move this conversation into my room due to its sensitive nature," Olivia suggested, then added in a lower voice, "My parents won't hear us in there." Cameron and Millie nodded, then followed Olivia to her room along with Morgana. Once they filed in and shut the door behind them, Olivia nodded to Millie. "That's better. Go ahead, Millie," Olivia encouraged. Millie looked from Olivia to Cameron and summoned the courage to say what she knew might lead to a truth that she dreaded. She did not know if she could stand to see Cameron's reaction when he revealed that they might be related, but the truth needed to come out sooner or later. At least then he might stop making it so awkward every time they got close to touching. Millie took a deep breath and steeled herself. "I know about what's going on with the Crawford family. They have been looking for a long-lost relative, Mariana Crawford, and I know that she was connected to the Angel Wish orphanage. She was there around the same time that I was, and she should be about my age, so there's a decent chance that I might be the Mariana they're looking for." Millie's voice shook slightly. It was surreal for her to hear herself say it all out loud. She paused and gulped before looking Cameron in the eye as she continued. "But I also know that the Pells have been looking for a lost relative too from the same orphanage at the same time, and she would also be my age. I know that I might be Jacqueline Pell. I overheard you and Camilla talking at the hospital," Millie said, knowing that Cameron would wonder how she found out. Millie's heart pounded as she tried to read Cameron's face for any possible reaction. She thought her heart might break as she waited for him to respond. Cameron could not believe his ears. He had no idea Millie knew about the search for Mariana Crawford, or that Millie was just as worried as he had been about the possibility that she could be his missing cousin, Jacqueline Pell. He quickly tried to sign to Millie that she was wrong about that part. They already solved the case when they confirmed that Millie was Jacqueline with the DNA test. Before Cameron could explain all of this to Millie, Camilla came bursting into the room. "Guess what, kids? Whatever you're talking about, my news is bigger. I guarantee it," Camilla said excitedly. "Camilla, did you find Carolina Crawford? What happened with her?" Olivia asked urgently. "I heard that she's armed and dangerous." Camilla crossed her arms and smirked. "None of us have to worry about her. Let's just say Carolina Crawford won't be bothering us anymore." "How do you know? Did you catch her? She had a gun," Millie exclaimed. "Oh no, a gun," Camilla scoffed sarcastically. "I said don't worry about it. I handled her." Camilla turned to Cameron with a bright look in her eyes. It was the first time any of them had seen Camilla look like she might cry with joy. "And I finally found out who has the antidote that can heal your voice." "Who?" they all exclaimed. Cameron's eyes were wide with disbelief. He never thought he would hear that sentence. "Pete Pell! That dirty bastard Uncle Pete! He's had it the whole time!" Camilla said excitedly, but her fists clenched with anger. She still could not believe their uncle had betrayed them by withholding the secret that could restore her brother's voice. Olivia, Millie, and Cameron stared back at Camilla in shock. Why would Pete Pell hide something so important from his own nephew? Olivia asked incredulously. "I don't know," Camilla answered. "He knows exactly how painful it was to see Cameron struggle and think there was no hope. That he had to just accept that this was how his going to be. My best guess is that he wanted to use us to get his own revenge on the Crawfords, and the best way to do that would be to have us think that they were the reason for Cameron's lifelong injury. But there's no reason that could possibly justify it." A sinister smile crept across Camilla's face. "What I do know, though, is that he's dead meat." Cameron nodded slowly as he processed the bomb Camilla just dropped. "Even our grandfather doesn't trust Uncle Pete," he signed. "Right. He didn't want us to tell Pete about Melly. That should have made us way more suspicious than we were." Camilla agreed. "Melly? What does this have to do with her?" Millie asked. Everyone was even more confused. "Melly, as in the one who was in the orphanage at the same time as Millie?" Olivia asked as she gradually began piecing it together. "Oh yeah, we just figured out that Melly is our long-lost cousin Jacqueline Pell. Isn't that great?" Camilla grinned. "DNA test verified. Man, a lot has happened this week." Camilla chuckled to herself. Cameron and Millie looked at each other immediately. "You found Jacqueline?" Millie asked in sign language, still afraid to hope. "That's what I was trying to tell you before Camilla walked in." Cameron signed back to Millie. "We're not cousins. I had no idea you knew about any of this, or I would have told you right away." "So we're definitely not related," Millie repeated in a relieved daze. She had started to think that the universe had conspired against her to be truly happy. That having an impossible wedge between her and Cameron was somehow a price to pay for all of the good things in her life. Cameron smiled and nodded as he took Millie in his arms. He was so happy. For the first time since she had overheard Cameron and Camilla discussing Jacqueline Pell at the hospital, she wholeheartedly leaned into his embrace. Her arms held tightly around Cameron's neck, and she felt safe and happy to be that close to him once again. Millie's heart raced, but in a good way this time. As she stood there enjoying the feel of Cameron's arms around her, something suddenly dawned on Millie. She stood back, brow furrowed. "So, if I'm not a Pell, then that means I must be a Crawford?" Olivia and the twins exchanged a glance. Over at the Rose Hotel, Mark was getting ready for the grand party that was to take place that night. He appeared to have an extra pep in his step as he ran various errands and oversaw preparations for the event. Mark knew he had found the solution to his problems and could not help but feel excited to come out on top yet again. One important part of his plan was to check in with his security team. "No one is to let Beatrix Cooper within 100 feet of the event tonight. Remember, she's very clever, so you can't let her trick you. No matter what she tells you, I don't care if she offers you $1 million, do not let her in, understood? Yes, sir. The security team nodded in confirmation. Just then, Mark's assistant hurried in to get his attention. Mr. DeLillo, your appointment has just arrived. My appointment? Oh, Mark said, suddenly remembering. It was arguably his most important appointment of the day. Yes, good, Mark said. He turned to the security team that stood around his office. That's all. Everyone clear out of here, he ordered. Once everyone had left, he turned back to his assistant. Send him in. The assistant went back out to the hall. A few moments later, his assistant re-entered, leading in an extremely suspicious-looking man. The man did not look like the type that would normally have business with someone of Mark DeLillo's status. Mark's assistant lingered in the doorway, eyeing Mark's strange guest. Mark noticed his assistant lingering curiously. What are you still doing here? There's a ton left to do for tonight. Get the hell out. Mark barked impatiently at his assistant. Yes, sir. The assistant squeaked before hurrying out of the room. Mark turned to his guest. So, do you have the, thing? Do you have the money? The sketchy-looking man asked gruffly. Mark sighed and picked up a briefcase that had been hidden under his desk. He placed it on top of the desk and opened it to reveal what had to be thousands of dollar bills tucked neatly inside. I guess you do then. The man grinned, showing off a gold tooth. Mark closed the briefcase and slid it across his desk to the man. The man quickly fished a wrinkled paper bag out of his jacket pocket and tossed it to Mark, who caught it just in time. Hey, watch it with this stuff, Mark complained. He opened the bag and pulled out a small, clear baggie of white powder. He eyed it closely. And this is definitely what I ordered? If I get it checked, it'll be the legit stuff and not some trick, right? The man pointed confidently at the bag. You're looking at the purest cyanide money can buy. I don't even want to know what you're going to do with it. Don't worry, that's for me to know. Mark grinned at the little baggie that was going to change the trajectory of his life. At the Cooper mansion, Brett stood in front of an oversized mirror, buttoning up a white-collared dress shirt, while a team of tailors he had hired for the event worked at cuffing his trousers. Brett proudly looped a tie around his neck, smirking at his own reflection. The tie was an eyesore, bright pink with a crazy pattern that made him look like he did not fit into proper society. But all Brett knew was that the tie was expensive, and tonight he wanted to show off the wealth he felt he so rightly deserved. Brett smiled at himself in the mirror, pleased with what he thought looked incredibly fashionable. To say he was excited for the Rose Hotel closing party was an understatement. He beamed with pride, knowing his plans were all finally falling into place. He had single-handedly course-corrected the future of this family and was on track to merge with one of the most powerful men in Manhattan. Melanie was standing next to Brett, a seamstress fussing about her as she frowned into the mirror behind her father. Her energy didn't match the elegant floral dress she wore. Melanie was especially dreading going to the Rose Hotel tonight. She didn't feel up to the line or games her father had forced her into. As she thought about the predicament that lay ahead of her, she found herself suddenly missing the carefree days of her youth, running around with her sister, even more than usual. Brett smiled at his daughter, but his mood quickly soured when he saw her pouting behind him. What are you looking so dour for? This is your big night. Brett sneered at Melanie. I'm just worried about Beatrix. Ever since she found out about me marrying Mark, she hasn't been home, Melanie said, nervously fidgeting with the tulle on her dress. Brett didn't miss a beat. Beatrix is just jealous that she couldn't beg Mark DeLillo for herself. She's upset to see that he's falling in love with you, and not her. Brett smirked at himself in the mirror. He found himself amusing. He began to finger-comb his hair, falling deeper in love with himself with every flourish. Melanie's face fell at her father's comment. He had a particular way of always saying the wrong thing. Even the members of his own family found him unbearable. Melanie couldn't help but wonder if she had made a terrible mistake. She suddenly wished she had never gotten caught up in his web of lies and deceit. "Let's face it, your sister is losing her touch," Brett said as the tailors made the final touches to his party outfit. Even though Melanie didn't believe a word he said and wanted to fight back, she knew it was best to keep her mouth shut. Instead, she grabbed her brush and furiously combed through her hair, frustrated with the lack of control she had over his own life. Just then, Erica crept into the room, timidly standing in the corner until Brett noticed her. "What? What's that look?" Brett asked Erica. He seemed annoyed by her mere presence in her own home. Erica mustered the courage to finally speak her truth. "Brett, I have a bad feeling about tonight. I'm not sure you and Melanie should go." "A bad feeling? What, are you a fortune teller now?" Brett scoffed at his wife. He tried not to show his disdain, but inside he was surprised and threatened by Erica's sudden newfound voice. "I just don't think it's a good idea. This whole plan of yours, I don't think Melanie should be married off to Mark DeLillo." Erica braced for backlash. She knew Brett wouldn't appreciate her speaking her mind, but she had to say something. Brett turned on his heels and faced Erica, a patronizing look spreading across his face. "You have no idea what you're talking about. You are going to ruin this family if you keep talking like that." "I don't want to ruin this family," Erica defended herself. Brett's voice gradually lowered as he spoke. "I don't know if you noticed, Erica, but the Coopers don't have a ton of prospects these days, and money doesn't grow on trees. Our daughters should not only marry well, but needs to marry well." Erica's heart raced as she felt backed into a corner. "I just feel—" Erica stammered. Brett raised his eyebrows, waiting for her to say something that he could challenge. "Like our daughters deserve to make their own big life choices. I want them to be happy." Brett understood how to shut Erica up for good. "And how's that happiness working out for you?" Erica turned away from Brett, knowing he would never listen to her. She took one last look at her daughter, making a silent wish for her safety, then exited the room. Out in the hallway, Erica quickly pulled out her phone and tried to call Beatrix for the 10th time that day. The line rang twice and then went to voicemail. "You've reached Beatrix. Leave a message if you want, but I won't check it." Erica sighed and opened her text message thread with Beatrix. She had sent her multiple texts that had gone unanswered. She decided to send yet another asking Beatrix where she was. Erica was starting to feel more desperate and helpless than ever before. Over in New Jersey, Carolina Crawford and Madeline Defarge rushed to get back to their villa. They needed to pack their bags and leave New York as quickly as possible. "Hurry! If we don't leave town by midnight, Camilla Pell will have us killed," Carolina said as Madeline looked through her purse for the keys to the villa. Madeline sat on the ground, still unable to locate the keys. "We don't have much time," Carolina urged. Finally, the keys appeared, and Madeline was able to open the door to the villa. Carolina pushed her way into the house, running her hands against the wall for the light switch. She found it and flipped the switch a few times, but there was no light. "Turn the lights on, Carolina. We need to move quickly." Madeline began to move around the space in the dark, frustrated by their current situation. "I'm trying," Carolina complained. "They're not turning on. Maybe the power went out." "Wait there. I'll go find the circuit breaker," Madeline offered, wanting to fix the problem as soon as possible. Madeline crept through the house, the pitter-patter of her feet on the linoleum floors. Suddenly, Carolina heard a short, muffled scream, and what sounded like a body hitting the ground. "Madeline? Are you okay? Did you fall?" Carolina asked into the darkness of the villa. Carolina heard another set of footsteps and quickly realized they weren't alone at the villa. She could suddenly feel the presence of someone else in there with her. "Who's there?" Carolina asked, her voice shaking with fear. No one answered. Carolina searched for her phone to use the flashlight. She found it in her back pocket and pulled it out, turning on the small flashlight. She scanned the room. The light caught on something, or someone. Carolina screamed bloody murder and dropped her phone. The light caught on a full smile in the dark. Carolina picked up her phone and found the face in the dark again. It was Beatrix. "Beatrix, what the hell are you doing?" Carolina demanded, confused why Beatrix would be in her villa. "Don't make any sudden movements," Beatrix said as she pulled out her own phone and turned the flashlight on. Beatrix revealed that Madeleine Defarge was passed out on the ground, her hands tied tightly behind her back and her ankles bound. Carolina gasped at the sight. Then, clumsily, Carolina reached for her purse, grabbing the gun she had brought to graduation and shakily trying to aim it at Beatrix. But Beatrix was too quick. She pulled out her own small silver pistol and immediately aimed the gun at Madeleine's head. "Don't worry, she's not dead. She's only been chloroformed. It'll wear off," Beatrix sarcastically comforted Carolina. "But a shot to the head, that won't wear off." "What do you want?" Carolina screamed, unsure what she could say or do to make Beatrix stop. "First of all, drop the gun and kick it over here," Beatrix coaxed Carolina. Carolina weighed her options. She could just shoot Beatrix right now, but she knew that Beatrix was a much more skilled gunman than herself, and her hands were already shaking. Besides, Beatrix was about 20 feet away from her, whereas Madeleine was directly beside Beatrix. Carolina didn't like her odds. She frowned before dropping the gun and kicking it over towards Beatrix, who snatched it up quickly, emptying it of its bullets. "Anyways, you already know what I want." Beatrix smirked at Carolina. Carolina racked her brain but couldn't think of anything. "I don't know!" Carolina yelled. "Like I actually don't know what you're talking about." "Disc, disc, disc, that's not what I want to hear." Beatrix shook her head and cocked the silver pistol in her hand. "Just tell me, what do you want? Name your price!" Carolina pleaded, dropping to her knees, tears filling her eyes as she watched Madeleine lie there helplessly. "I need you to get me into the Rose Hotel," Beatrix confirmed. "But I can't go back into the city." Carolina shook her head. "I think you can." Beatrix lined the gun up again to a clear shot of Madeleine. "The Bell twins will have me killed," Carolina cried out. Beatrix scoffed. "That's tough, Carolina. But you got yourself into this mess. You were rude to me. So rude that I had to do all this." Beatrix gestured to Madeleine's motionless body on the floor. "You're crazy," Carolina said, trailing off. "You're a complete psycho." Beatrix stared into Carolina's eyes, almost antagonizing her before she spoke. Carolina had begun to physically shake now. "You can fix this and make it all better, Carolina. It's so easy." Carolina squared up to Beatrix, thinking that maybe if she tried hard enough, she could regain some control here. But Beatrix had seen through Carolina's false confidence. Carolina knew she had no other choice. Carolina deflated, her eyes falling to the floor ashamed. It felt like a death wish either way. But Carolina knew she had to at least try. "Fine, I'll help you get into the Rose Hotel." And just like that, Beatrix lowered the gun and smiled wickedly at Carolina. "I knew you'd come to your senses. Are you ready to head back into the city?" "Now?" Carolina asked, sitting on the floor, afraid of what was to come. It seemed like between Beatrix Cooper and Camilla Pell, Carolina's chances of leaving New York alive were dwindling. "Now." Beatrix's words cut through the air like a knife. The night of the Rose Hotel closing party had arrived, and Olivia was in her room with Morgana getting ready. Their outfits for the evening hung on the bathroom door, careful not to get wrinkled. They were each currently wrapped in comfortable, fluffy bathrobes as they helped each other with their hair and makeup. Olivia had to admit, even if she was going to an event thrown by her enemy, it felt good to be getting out of the house. Music played from a radio in the background, and the sound of a familiar tune distracted Olivia for a moment. I have to say, it's been so weird to hear all of this music that I think of as throwbacks come out now like they're brand new. Olivia laughed. That would be a weird part of reliving the same life again. Morgana nodded. You probably know how all the TV shows we watch end, too. Yep. Olivia smiled. Finally, I can say that out loud to someone. Olivia thought to herself. It was such a relief to have her secret out in the open, even if it was only to Morgana and her brothers. Well, don't tell me any of them, Morgana warned, then changed the subject back to their original conversation. So, Millie, are you going to reach out to the Crawford family for her? Morgana asked. I told her that I would help get her in touch with Scarlett Crawford. She's the matriarch of the Crawford family. I offered to reach out whenever she wants, but Millie said she wasn't ready, Olivia explained. With everything that's just happened to her, I'm actually a little worried about her. I know, graduation was traumatizing for all of us, but Millie was the actual target. I don't know how she's even functioning right now. Morgana shook her head. I know, and then everything with Derek. Olivia trailed off. It was only a few hours after the reveal that Millie was a Crawford that she received the call from her father informing her that the doctors had not been able to save Derek. The gunshot had hit an important organ, and he had not made it. Derek was gone. He was a terrible guy, I'm just going to say it, Morgana said bluntly. He was awful to Millie for no reason, and we all knew it. But he did sacrifice himself for Millie when he saw what was happening. I'll give him that. Morgana sighed. It's all so shocking. I know. Olivia nodded. After receiving the call, Millie had understandably wanted to return home to be with her father. She knew that he would be grieving the loss of his son, and, despite her feelings for Derek, Millie loved her dad. Luckily, Camilla, Cameron, and Lena had gone with her, so Olivia knew that Millie was surrounded by love and support at that moment. Poor Principal Yan. Morgana shook her head. He's a nice man. I don't know how Derek was related to him. A timer went off on Olivia's phone, distracting them from their conversation. Okay, it's almost time. We gotta pick up the pace. Olivia clapped her hands together, and the girls quickly got changed into their party dresses, carefully helping one another zip up. Just then, they heard a gentle knock on Olivia's door. Come in, Olivia offered. Michael opened the door a crack and peeked in. I just wanted to see how you're doing. You can come in more than that, we're decent. Olivia waved her dad in. Michael stepped fully into the room and searched Olivia closely for any signs of being unwell. Are you sure you feel ready to go out tonight? He asked anxiously. You're still recovering, and there's been so much distress and chaos lately. I don't want you straining yourself just when you're starting to get better. Don't worry, Dad, I'm definitely ready. And I wouldn't do it if it wasn't really important. I have to do this tonight, Olivia insisted. Besides, I'll have tons of people there looking out for me, Olivia added, trying to assuage her father's anxiety. I'll make sure she's safe, Michael, Morgana said and gave him a small salute. I'm even bringing her lots of healthy snacks so she can fill up on sweets at the party. Michael smiled at the girls. He assumed Olivia's eagerness at attending the Rose Hotel closing party was to show face for the park company. He had no idea that Olivia was protecting Jared Nevin by taking on his brother, Jake, once and for all. Michael sighed deeply, taking a seat on Olivia's bed as he watched her primping in the mirror. You're definitely my daughter, that's for sure. Don't overdo it, though. The second you feel anything isn't right, you come straight home, understood? It's not worth risking your health again. Right, Morgana? Right. Morgana nodded to reassure him. She knew the real reason why Olivia needed to be at this party, but she also knew how important it was for Olivia not to risk her health. Morgana was prepared to do whatever it took to keep Olivia safe, while she did what needed to be done. If anyone could pull it off, it was Olivia Johnson. I got it, Dad, Olivia sighed. But inside, she felt lucky that her father cared so deeply for her well-being. Now, are you sure you don't want to come tonight? Olivia asked. Oh, I'm sure, no question. Michael waved his hand as if to shoo away the question. Ever since the Handler Gala madness, your mother has wanted to stay as far away from more society events as possible, and I don't blame her. Michael grinned. Of course, I want to keep her company. Honestly, there's nothing I would rather spend the evening doing than cozying up with her on the couch and watching movies. You can't talk me out of it. He laughed. I understand. Olivia smiled. It made her so happy to see her parents getting along so well. Her dad had been one of the biggest workaholics she knew, and a reconciliation between them had once seemed so impossible. So it was wonderful to see them finally slow down and choose each other over everything else. It was a dream come true for Olivia. Well, I'll let you get back to it then, Michael sighed. He smiled at Olivia, relieved that she was looking so well after her major health scare. You girls both look fantastic. I hope you have fun. Michael stood up to leave. You too, Dad. Olivia smiled as he winked back at her just before leaving the room. The idea of her parents staying safe at home that night was comforting to Olivia. Ever since Saibon had sent those mercenaries to search her home, Olivia didn't like the idea of Victoria being home alone. Olivia and Morgana were just finishing their final touches when Olivia's phone vibrated. Olivia reached for the phone and read the text that had popped up on the screen. Violet is downstairs with the car. Olivia relayed the message to Morgana. She took a deep breath and smiled at Morgana. Well, I think that's everything. It's time. You have everything you need? Absolutely. Morgana nodded confidently. See? Morgana held out her clutch and opened it to show Olivia what was inside. The bag was filled with Morgana's bugs. Great, you're all set, Olivia said, trying not to gag. She smiled at Morgana. About those healthy snacks you mentioned? Don't worry, I have them in my pockets, Morgana said and gestured to the pockets in her dress. Purse for bugs, pockets for snacks. I've got a system. You certainly do, Olivia laughed. Just because you can't use your powers tonight doesn't mean I can't use my magic, Morgana smirked. And just because it's a party doesn't mean we can skimp on your nutrition. Thank you, nurse. Brent will be very pleased, Olivia smiled. The girls made their way down to the car where Violet greeted them. You both look very nice, she nodded approvingly. So do you, Morgana exclaimed. I'm ready to kick some rich boy ass and look good doing it. Olivia and Violet laughed, then settled into the car. As they pulled onto the street, Olivia thought about the evening ahead of her. So much had been leading up to this. Tonight is the night that I'm finally going to get revenge on Jake Nevin for all of his crimes, Olivia thought to herself. Not just for everything he has done to me, but for all of the hurt he has caused to everyone I care about, especially for Jared. Jared's life depends on it. Olivia could not fail. Too many people were counting on her. The fact that she could not use her powers was worrisome, but she knew she could do it. She had everything she needed. Still, she worried that if things didn't go perfectly, they could instead go horribly wrong. Are you okay, Olivia? Morgana asked. Olivia suddenly realized she had been frowning deeply as she stared out the window. Yes, I'm fine. Everything is going to be fine, Olivia said reassuringly. It wasn't just for Morgana, but for herself as well. Across town, Jake Nevin, his Aunt Jessica, and his cousin Georgina were also getting ready to attend the Rose Hotel party, in spite of not actually being invited. But how are we going to get in if we're not on the list? Georgina asked impatiently. I don't want this blowout to be a total waste, she said, smoothing her hands over her perfectly done hair. I obviously already thought about that, Jake sneered. Knowing Mark DeLillo, he probably invited my slimy gutter rat brother. That means the guest list will have Jared Nevin plus guests, so we'll enter using that name. Jake looked at himself in the mirror as he straightened his bow tie. Mark thought he could just cut me off and never hear from me again. Well, he's going to feel pretty stupid tonight when he sees us there. But what if Jared shows up? Georgina asked. Jared is too much of a chicken to show up, Jake scoffed. Wherever he's hiding out, I'm sure he'll stay there until he thinks it's safe. He smiled at himself in the mirror. Little does he know, the world will never be safe for him again. Jake's smile turned into a frown as he stared deep into his own eyes. Tonight is the last night of my life that anyone will disrespect me ever again. Tonight everyone is going to find out who I am. There's a new Nevin patriarch in New York City. They'll all be sorry. Olivia sat in the front seat of Violet's car as she drove, holding her phone up as she FaceTimed with Jeff and Jared, still hiding out at the park company. From the back seat, Morgana leaned forward, wanting to be included as they went over the plan for the night once more. "We're almost at the hotel." Olivia leaned her head to look out the window, confirming their location. "I think we're ready." Morgana smirked, clarifying, "Oh, we're definitely ready. My bag is filled to the brim with everything we need." Morgana had to stop herself before accidentally admitting to Jeff and Jared that she had a magical secret. Olivia tried not to scrunch her nose as she held in her laughter. She was grateful for Morgana's help and knew they wouldn't be able to pull this off without her. Jared cut in then. "I just want to make sure my brother gets what he deserves." He was still grieving his grandfather, a mixture of anger and sadness in his expression. Olivia nodded. "Don't worry, Jared. He will." She was going to make sure of it. Violet cleared her throat as she pulled the car up to the hotel's front entrance. "Girls, we're here. Jeff, Jared, we've got to go now. We're at the hotel." Before hanging up, Olivia assured Jeff and Jared once more that their plan would be successful. "After tonight, Jared will be the rightful owner of the Nevin Company," Olivia said in a confident voice. As soon as Olivia stepped out of the car, she noticed someone lingering outside the hotel. It was Sven waiting for them outside. He was wearing a smart-looking Havana suit that set him apart just enough to elicit flirty stares and murmurs from every woman, and some men who passed by him. Olivia smirked at her friend. This was just like Sven to show up unannounced when she needed him most. Sven's eyes flashed warmly when he caught sight of Olivia. Olivia smiled widely at him, shaking her head. "What are you doing here?" She walked over to him and gave him a quick hug hello. Sven smiled and shrugged. "Come on, there was no way I was letting you walk into the lion's den without me." Olivia looked at Violet and Morgana, and neither of them looked surprised by Sven's appearance. "I suppose I should have guessed it. Sven has been acting overly protective ever since my surgery." Olivia felt an overwhelming wave of gratitude, knowing she had so much support from all of her friends. But then she remembered part of the reason Sven had been so overprotective of her recently. Because Chris wasn't there to watch over her himself. Olivia tried to choke back the instant tears that always arose when she thought of her missing fiancé. Olivia took a deep breath and reminded herself why she was here. Tonight is about getting revenge on Jake Nevin. "I need to stay focused," Olivia told herself. She plastered a smile on her face and turned to Sven. "Thanks for coming. Now let's fill you in on our plan before we enter." Violet agreed. "Yes, we all need to be dialed in tonight, no mistakes." Olivia gestured to Violet, Sven, and Morgana to form a huddle, carefully checking over her shoulder to make sure no one was eavesdropping. "Okay, remember, the main objective tonight is to track Jake Nevin. Eyes on him at all times. Our goal is to follow him into a restroom and trap him there, so that Morgana can use her bugs on him." Morgana nodded and tapped her bag. "Yep, tons of bugs." Olivia continued. "The rest of us will watch the door and make sure no one else enters during this time. It shouldn't take too long. Does that sound good?" "Sounds like a plan, baby." Morgana wiggled her eyebrows. Sven shrugged his hands into his pockets, casually. "I got this." Violet smiled at Olivia and squeezed her shoulder. "Let's do this." Olivia, Violet, Morgana, and Sven all turned and headed towards the giant glass doors of the Rose Hotel and stepped inside together. As they entered the lobby, none of them could believe their eyes. The hotel was completely decked out. It looked like a scene out of an old Hollywood movie. Every detail was exquisite. There were waiters scattered throughout the entire lobby, all carefully balancing coupe glasses of champagne and artisanal hors d'oeuvres on beautiful, ornate golden trays. They each grabbed a glass of champagne as they took everything in. To the left, Olivia could see an entire row of ice sculptures that looked to be up to 10 feet tall each. And to her right, there was a massive platform where aerial dancers and acrobats were performing. I guess if Mark has even a single redeeming quality, it's his penchant for planning a good party. Olivia laughed to herself. Morgana and Violet both reveled at the theatrics and decor. But Sven, who had grown up going to some of the grandest parties in the world, wasn't letting himself get distracted. He was already scanning the crowd for their target, Jake Nevin. I don't see him. Anyone else? Sven asked, and snapped the girls out of their trance. Violet quickly dialed in her focus, embarrassed that she had gotten momentarily distracted. Violet spoke up. No, he must not have arrived yet. I think we should hang back so that we can keep a steady view on the place. Across the lobby, Mark DeLillo was anxiously chewing on the inside of his mouth as he tried desperately not to lose his cool with Brett. For the last 20 minutes, Brett had been going on and on about the type of press release they should put out in the newspapers to announce Mark and Melanie's engagement. Melanie stood beside Brett, staying quiet and feeling particularly uncomfortable next to her fiancé. She noticed Mark's anxious chewing and wondered what he was thinking about. I mean, really, it can't be something pathetic, I know. Let's hire a photographer. I want to see a huge photo of the two of you on the front page, Brett said, as if the idea had just come to him, even though Melanie knew he had already contacted a few different photographers the night before. Don't put wedding announcements on the front page, Mark sighed, growing tired by Brett's uncouth naivete. I just think we can move a little slower. I mean, Melanie's not even showing yet. We have time. Brett furrowed his brows, trying not to get too frustrated. We're not going to wait until she has a baby bump to announce this engagement, Mark. Do you want to be humiliated? Mark bit down hard on the inside of his cheek, wincing at the pain. No, don't insult me. I know what I'm doing. Nothing good is ever rushed. I will take my time finding the best photographers, the most beautiful and expensive ring, and I will do this the right way. Understand? Mark knew he only had to appease Brett for the next couple hours, because he had his own plan tonight, and soon enough, none of this pandering to the Cooper family would be necessary. Brett crossed his arms and glanced at Melanie, who still wasn't saying anything. He turned back to Mark. Okay, when are you planning to make the initial engagement announcement tonight? Before dinner? Mark was distracted by the flash of a familiar face somewhere in the crowd across the lobby. He couldn't believe it was who he thought it was. There was no way she would have come to one of his events. Mark craned his neck to get a better view, confirming what he thought he had seen. It was Olivia Johnson. Mark frowned and interrupted Brett's questioning. I'm sorry, you'll have to excuse me. Mark turned and walked off into the crowd, moving quickly. Brett huffed, then finally focused his attention on his daughter, Melanie. What is wrong with you tonight? Brett spit the words out. You're being such a wet blanket. Melanie's stomach dropped at her father's tone. I'm worried about Beatrix, you know that. I still haven't heard from her. Brett rolled his eyes. Don't think about Beatrix. She clearly doesn't care about you, so why should you care about her? Melanie refused to believe that her sister didn't care about her. Something had to be wrong. She swallowed down the lump in her throat and didn't respond. Mark beelined for Olivia across the hall, rudely pushing aside guests and waiters alike who got in his way. Olivia noticed Mark suddenly rushing over and steeled herself. So it begins, she thought. Morgana also noticed Mark wading through the crowd and glanced up at Olivia. Now that she knew the entire history between the two of them, she could only imagine what Olivia was feeling as he approached. Morgana leaned over and whispered to Olivia, Remember, you can't use your powers. Not if you want to see Chris. Olivia bit her lip, annoyed at the reminder. But she knew Morgana was right. Mark DeLillo wasn't worth it. Mark finally made it across the room and stood directly in front of Olivia. He didn't even bother to acknowledge Morgana standing beside her. I'm surprised to see you, Olivia. I heard you've been in the hospital. I hope everything's all right. Olivia heard the accusatory tone in Mark's voice, but chose to ignore it with a laugh. Oh, Mark, I'm surprised my little visit is even on your mind. I was only there for something so tiny, I almost forgot it even happened myself. Mark knew Olivia had to be lying about this so-called tiny hospital visit. That's interesting because no one has seen you for a few weeks now. Olivia kept her cool. That's because I've been so busy working. I've been practically chained to my desk. You might know what it's like if you weren't so busy planning parties all the time. Kudos on the acrobats, by the way. She smiled, her eyes glistening with venom. Mark returned her smile with one of his own, equally filled with tangible hatred. They stayed locked in a shared death glare for a beat, before Mark broke their standoff. Well, I hope you and your friends enjoy yourselves. It's going to be an exciting evening. Suddenly, Olivia felt a strong premonition about something bad that Mark had planned. Her breath caught in her throat as she stared at his expression. She wanted to read Mark's mind so badly, but knew she couldn't. I have to save my energy if I want to be well enough to rescue Chris Jones at the end of the summer. Olivia sighed and turned away from Mark, trying to shake this feeling. But something in my gut tells me that Mark is up to something big. The Rose Hotel closing party was fully underway, but yet Jake Nevin was still nowhere to be seen. Olivia navigated through the crowds of business executives and society people, while Morgana, Violet, and Sven kept a close eye on her. She graciously accepted acquaintances' congratulations on graduating from high school, while fielding their probing questions regarding the mysterious shooter that crashed the Marshall School's graduation ceremony. Olivia thought of Millie, and again worried about how her friend was doing. But she reminded herself that she had to focus on the mission at hand: revenge on Jake Nevin. While they waited for Jake to arrive, they had more time to take in the lavishly outrageous party. In addition to the ice sculptures, dancers, and acrobats, endless high-end wine, champagne, and fancy cocktails flowed. Throughout the hour, dozens of different hors d'oeuvres circulated around the room, and long tables were covered in elaborate charcuterie displays designed to look like models of recognizable world landmarks. Mark DeLillo had also managed to get an impressive number of celebrities to attend. I wonder how much this cost him. Olivia chuckled to herself as a very famous pop star performed a short acoustic set on the small makeshift stage across the lobby. Olivia kept an eye out for Jake Nevin to arrive, but more than an hour had already passed since the party began and he was still not there. Come on, where are you? Olivia silently wondered. She had so much adrenaline coursing through her body just at the thought of finally taking on Jake Nevin that she was beginning to grow impatient. At least I'm still feeling okay, she thought as she realized this was the most strenuous activity she had done since her surgery. Even though her main purpose for attending the party wasn't to benefit the park company, she knew it was good to be seen in public again after being mysteriously out of commission. Her seemingly good health that night could only help her reputation. Olivia also carefully watched Mark DeLillo's every move. He did his best job of schmoozing and seemed to be in an absolutely terrific mood. Olivia also noticed that Melanie Cooper and her father Brett always seemed to be right next to Mark, no matter where he went, what he did, or who he talked to. Melanie and Brett Cooper have practically been riding around on Mark's back all night. Isn't that odd? Olivia muttered to Sven. I know Beatrix has been helped out, but Melanie and Brett, I'm surprised Mark tolerates them at all. Speaking of Beatrix, where is she? Sven said in a low voice as he subtly glanced around the room. She never lets Melanie out of her sight, especially since, Olivia looked around and realized she had not seen Beatrix at all yet either. That is very odd. She glanced back at Mark and narrowed her eyes. This is all going too smoothly. The usual suspects aren't here, and Mark seemed awfully confident when we talked earlier. I think he's up to something. When it comes to Mark DeLillo, that is probably good instinct, Sven agreed. Violet leaned in. I'll do a lap to see if I can get any intel. I'll go with you, Sven said. I've got Olivia. Morgana nodded, clutching her handbag of bugs. Sven and Violet started working their way around the room. Morgana checked her phone for the time. Oh, she exclaimed. What? What is it? Olivia asked anxiously, thinking that Morgana must have remembered something important. It's healthy snack o'clock, the first of many, Morgana announced and dug into her pockets. Eat this handful of unsalted almonds for me and drink a whole glass of water, Morgana said sternly. Olivia rolled her eyes. Okay, she said as she chewed on the bland almonds. How many snacks do you have in there? The right amount, Morgana replied dryly. They're deep pockets. I am prepared. We're keeping your energy up. It's going to be a long night. At that same moment, just outside the hotel, a fancy town car with blackened-out windows pulled up to the curb. Behind the wheel was Beatrix Cooper. She put the car in park, then turned to Carolina Crawford, who sat tensely in the passenger seat next to her. Let's go over it again, one more time to make sure you understand. Okay, Carolina said and rolled her eyes as she crossed her arms defiantly. I don't like your tone. Now listen up. There's a back entrance and an emergency stairwell right off the kitchen area. If you open that door, it will set off an alarm, so you have to get around that. The staff all have a code that shuts off the alarm, so they can use that door for kitchen deliveries and such. You need to get that code. And I get it by flirting with some dummy on the waitstaff? Carolina sighed. That's right. You convince them to have a smoke with you outside or whatever in the back alley there. And then you have them open the door for you, Beatrix instructed. While you're doing all of that, I will be waiting on the other side of the door. As soon as they step out, I'll knock the waiter unconscious. Then we take their uniform and sneak into the party. Got it? Yeah, Carolina huffed. Just like some kind of cartoon. Got it, Carolina said sarcastically. I can't believe I'm doing this. I should have just stayed home. Hey, what did I say about that tone? Beatrix snapped as she pulled her pistol out from her coat and pointed it threateningly at Carolina. If you've got a better idea, now is the time to share. Otherwise, fix your face and get in there. Fine, Carolina groaned. Her eyes darted warily to the pistol in Beatrix's hand. How are you going to knock out the waiter? That's for me to worry about. You just focus on getting them to the door, Beatrix answered. All right. Carolina nodded and opened the car door. She shut it behind her and walked into the grand entrance of the hotel toward the party. She gave her name to the bouncer, then made her way through the lobby. Carolina briefly considered making a run for it, but she knew there would be no getting away from Beatrix Cooper, and it would only make things worse for herself. Carolina sighed, admitting to herself that she was in it now. She took a look around the lobby, decorated to the nines, and had to admit she was impressed by the spectacle. Mark DeLillo might be a fool, according to everyone who knew better, but he sure could throw a party. She found herself following who she believed to be a very famous actor with her eyes, when suddenly she spotted Olivia and her strange friend Morgana in the middle of the crowd. Carolina quickly ducked out of view, hoping that Olivia had not yet noticed her. Carolina remembered her main objective, to find a waiter to help her through the door. She carefully surveyed the room and spotted an awkward-looking waiter who might be flattered by flirtatious advances. Even better, he looked to be about Beatrix's height, so the uniform would fit well enough as a disguise. Carolina put on her best innocent smile and caught his eye from a distance. He looked around confused, as if unable to believe that Carolina was actually looking at him. Carolina nodded enthusiastically and batted her eyelashes a bit. She cringed inwardly at just how degrading this plan was turning out to be, but she soldiered on. Beatrix had her in a bind. She sidled up to the waiter. You don't happen to have a cigarette, do you? The waiter looked shocked that Carolina was talking to him. Yeah, I do actually. Wonderful. Carolina grinned seductively. You're exactly who I need. Back outside at the entrance of the hotel, a giant luxury SUV pulled up to the curb. The doors opened and Jake, Jessica, and Georgina climbed out of the car. Jake looked particularly cocky as he walked up to the front doors. The Nevins are here, he announced to the staff members standing by the entrance. The bouncer stepped forward and narrowed his eyes at the three of them before scanning the guest list. First name, please, he said. Jake's smile faded as he realized the bouncer had no idea who he was. Jared Nevin. Jake mumbled begrudgingly. "And 2 guests," he added. He was furious to have the confirmation that Jared had been invited instead of him. Even though he had predicted it, Mark throwing him over in favor of his younger brother still made his blood boil. The bouncer ran his finger down the list until he found Jared's name. "There you are, come on in," he said as he moved aside to let them enter. As soon as Jake entered the party with Georgina and Jessica, Olivia locked her eyes onto Jake. "He's here," she said in a low voice to Morgana, who immediately texted the same message to Violet. Jake arrogantly swaggered into the party as he grabbed a glass of champagne off of a waiter's tray and downed the whole thing in one gulp. "Here you go," he said to the waiter as he set the empty glass onto the tray. The waiter just stared, stunned. Jake turned to Jessica and loudly announced, "It's time." "Jake, wait a minute. We need to follow a certain level of decorum here. Don't do what I think you're about to do," Jessica said warily, but it was too late. "You can't stop me because I'm in charge now," he said darkly to his aunt as he marched over to the stage that was assembled at the front of the lobby.